Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of season 6 of the Social Work Branch podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. I hope everybody's doing well. As of this recording, hope everybody had a good Passover, a good Easter. If you celebrate, all that good stuff, getting all that candy, all those eggs, and all that, all that good stuff. Please continue to follow the podcast on all social media platforms. On Instagram at the Social Work Rants Podcast. That's all one word. Twitter at Social Work Rants, and hit the like button on Facebook, aka Meta, at the Social Work Rants Podcast. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the podcast. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Rate the podcast on any audio platform. You continue to follow, continue to rock out. We're going to be talking things that normally are not talked about in the social work profession. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. Appreciate your love and support. One of my favorite topics to talk about, especially relates to New York City. I know I brought this up in the past, I think like a season or two ago, and we need to bring this back up, especially with all these COVID housing referendums are ending slowly throughout the country. In New York City, my good old hometown, my native New York, always got some drama going on, and especially after the last disastrous 8 years of office of De Blasio, we got clubbing Eric Adams rather be in a club than than doing anything, even though he saved face a little bit with an event that I was a part of, the 500 men Black Men Brunch event that happened a few weeks ago as of this recording it, but still he'd rather be in a club than solving real issues. and and then he just giving Republicans ammunition that, see, this is why this is what Democrats this is what Democrats do.
I gotta laugh at this.
It's true, but it's true, and we, the social workers, and we who work in social services, gotta work with what we got, and people are struggling. We could laugh because the mayor really is rather be clubbing. And he even said it himself. He goes to the clubs and then will supposedly wakes up at 5 a.m. and does whatever he does. But you can look it up. It's true. He said it out of his own mouth. So, but seriously, like we struggle to a client comes to us like, I need housing, and it just happened to be like a couple of times just within this week. And my reaction is like, I wish I could help you. Trust especially down here in Delaware, where Delaware focuses on townhomes and single family homes, and not building brand new apartment complexes. If they do, they're luxury apartments, and that's the common folk can't be paying that amount of rent. So like we struggling for resources. Resources are being cut, and so housing is an important topic. And those of you who are in private practice, get ready, because y'all gonna be doing a lot of case management, even though y'all like to talk trash about case management. So get ready when the clients come to you for therapy sessions and go, I got this, I got this, I got this. I'm like, figure out how to write that in a progress note, and try to make it clinical and try to get it built. Yeah, I said it.
Thank you, Bass. Thank you.
So there you go. You want to rant? There you go. There's my rant.
That was a good one. It's so true, though. It's so true. You have me here cracking up.
That being
Facts.
that being said, we have one of the co-authors of the Amazon #1 bestseller Latinx and Social Work Volume 2, my homie Rosita. We had a great time in Dallas. You want to catch the recap, but the recap is on the podcast. So Make sure you watch the video. You'll get a better experience of Dallas and myself talking trash about the Cowboys in front of people in Dallas. So we had a great time. I wish I could had time to see the city
Mm.
and stuff. But even though you had to taking a cab, like everywhere was like at least a half hour to travel to. So I saw a lot of the city without seeing much of anything. So taking that Uber on the highway is like no joke.
That is so true.
And then we have Mr. Nelson Rivera on one of the great agencies in New York in Fortune Society doing amazing things, and they have a lot of programs. So children and adults. So welcome you both. How you guys doing?
Thank you, Bass. Thank you so much. I mean, I couldn't hold myself of laughing, not because well, I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny with the whole like Eric Adams clubbing till 5 a.m, then rolling out, and then, you know, going on his SUV and PR media. So yeah, I totally understand it. And yeah, for the clinical folks, hey, housing is it's a major more than a hot topic, is real facts. And so, people need affordable housing and a real home. So that's where we're here. And I'm glad to bring in Nelson Rivera, who's the director of residential services at Fortune Society, a big pioneer in terms of criminal justice system. And being able to talk about Relish, what it is and what we're doing, and how we can continue working collectively to advocate for more housing and dignified homes, and really having Eric Adams address the real issue. So, and instead of involuntarily hospitalization for people who have mental illness or other things going on in life. So thank you so much.
No, of course. I mean, and that we'll definitely get into that, and actually we could start there. That's perfectly, in case, especially for my out of the country viewers and listeners, the wonderful mayor, Mr. Adams, wants to just involuntarily, like, if you see, obviously in New York, if you ever visit New York or our state of New Yorkers, we kind of just a lot of times just ignore. I mean, unfortunately, it's facts. You just ignore people with mental illness who be in the street, homeless, and they do whatever. They're now on their medications, or they probably haven't been on medications for years, and just roaming the streets, and they might yell or scream or whatever. We just walk by. We go by our business. And then does he have a task force, or he has the police picking him up and try to take him to the hospital involuntarily?
So this is a topic of controversy. And Nelson, why do you come into? Because Nelson also has been part of these initiatives, and hearing his perspective. Since I've been at Found House, as you know, and the last time I saw him in July 2022, like it was all like building more clubhouses, building more housing, providing more support, breaking isolation. And then you have a couple of months later, like 3 months in, and he's coming up with this, or coming up with an idea of like, well, we need to actually create an involuntary psychiatric mandate for individuals who are chronically homeless with severe mental illness, and providing funding in terms of these areas. It's against human rights. You can't do that, Adams. Number one. Number two, it doesn't resolve the real problem. And number three, yeah, they're policing people to its finest. So this is where our tax dollars are going. And again, he's coming from an administration of 8 years, like you mentioned, of de Blasio, having, excuse my language, a shit show, and then trying to do his best. So I don't knock him for trying to do his best. I just really think we need to educate more the mayor in terms of the real issues other than policing. And yes, we want to have more of a safe city, but it's not the real solution for people who are chronically homeless. And not every chronically homeless or homeless person has a mental illness. Let's take that first step there. We can't classify and put everybody in the same boat. It's not true, because we have certain incidents in the city doesn't mean everybody who's homeless is mentally ill. Who's going to attack you? That's not true. And also, you could add to this to your experience at Fortune and also being a director in Exodus, what your experience has been in terms of addressing this issue and all the controversy in terms of Eric Adams.
So I think for the most part, like we always talk about Eric Adams doing all the other stuff, the clubs and I think that we're running away from the proven fact that he's a police guy. Like he is a person who loves to police. He can say that he's been discriminated against. He can say, but he's been a police officer, and it goes to show when he was campaigning, his biggest people who wanted to vote for him were all police officers. They sponsored him. So let's talk about that, right? But then let's talk about this. You're talking about a man who's trying to do something different from what the past administration created, right? And it was really, really bad. And we all know that because it was just one of those things where even programs wasn't getting support from de Blasio unless it made him look good. So now you have a person who's trying to change the dynamic while clubbing, right? And it has a good line of people who work for him. You know, I work closely with the mayor's office because of the contract and the programs that we run for them in their housing. They're doing their best, but the thing about it is, how could you house people in this dynamic when you bringing people from other places and trying to house them? It doesn't work. So you got to worry about what's happening here first, and then bring the other people and say, well, we can help these people first because our people been doing this for a long. They've been going through this a long time. I have 750,000 people in New York State who are homeless because of a background, because of a conviction. So I'm concerned with the fact that, are we looking at that? Are we really looking at those things? So we can talk about how Eric Adams is this and Eric. He also needs to understand that unless he challenges the problem here, he's never going to address the problem in total. You know, and so that's the biggest thing for me. Like I wish that I could sit down with him and just have a one-on-one conversation, right? And maybe one day I will. Because, you know, at this point, I'm thinking one day it's going to happen, right? But I think that he's been put in a place that he can't do as much as he said. But he's just saying that.
No, I absolutely, and I'm sure he likes to be in the streets. So let's put that out. Let's put it in existence. You're gonna meet him and have that constructive conversation, and hopefully he listens because you know de Blasio tried to all these hotels that weren't used and try to house the homeless, and then we got community boards meetings, like blocking and all that stuff. So it's not like he ain't tried something. And I know Rosita, when I had you on the first time, after Hurricane Sandy, the shelter system was the shelter system before the hurricane was already like ass backwards, for lack of a bad word. And then the hurricane came and is like nothing that was never like fully like really addressed like the problems of the shelter system, and like more actual shelters are needed for not only for women and children, but just men in general. Now we need more men's shelters. We need shelter for women, like just who don't have kids. No, we no anybody could be homeless. Like a fire can happen right now, and like you're homeless. Like no, we just
no, and the prices of rent right now.
Exactly, anybody, exactly.
So I had the privilege of working at those hotels that you talk about, right? I ran 7 of those hotels through Exodus, and what I got a little confused was yes, okay, it was a time of the pandemic. We were trying to make sure that people didn't get as sick as they were getting. and keeping them safe, right? But at some point, we forgot about also moving forward, progressing people, moving them into a stable situation. Because this hotel wasn't a stable situation. It was safe because you had your own room, you had all these amenities, there was food all day and night, all these things, right? And you had people, watching over you, coming to check on you. You had case management, as you always talk about. You had, people trying to work with you, but you didn't have them to go to next, right? So now the problem was when the hotels was up, what was we going to do with these people? It became an ongoing concern. So I was happy to be able to be a part of creating a program that says, listen, let's start housing them. Let's start building, progressive states for them. So that way, but they became complacent, so comfortable. And I think that was a big concern. So now you got a guy like me coming in and saying, listen, don't get comfortable here. This is not permanent. This is temporary. We want to move you forward. We want to keep you successful. We want to make sure that you're going to still have a place to live after this. A lot of them was like, nah, I'm good here. Not knowing it wasn't permanent.
Right.
And so when the mayor's office said, well, these programs not permanent, it's too costly, we got to start cutting things off. This is why it wasn't a good idea.
But it don't help. Allegedly, de Blasio's wife stole all that money. That could have been used for the housing. Allegedly.
Oh God! Can I just add to what like Nelson said, because it's absolutely right. I mean, we're seeing that portfolio at Exodus, and it was transitional housing. And yes, it was during the pandemic, and this happened to a lot of providers, and a lot of people were impacted by this. Where they're being housed, they're getting they're getting services, they're getting free meals and all this, but they were getting too complacent. And then when the funding cuts, because it's like draining the budgets in City Hall, then what's going to happen with all these individuals? They become homeless, and then everybody's in emergency crises and everything. We shouldn't be working on emergency and crises mode all the time. It's real. Like you just mentioned, Baz, anybody could be homeless. You and I could be homeless. The majority of individuals in the shelter are people and families that can't afford the skyrocket rent in New York City, have 2 and 3 jobs, and can't maintain the apartment because all these luxury apartments that are popping everywhere are taking over. So what about those individuals in the shelter? And you just mentioned something, like people have been waiting 8-10 years in the shelters. You have the asylum seekers coming in, and it's a whole media and a big fiasco. And look, we all are immigrants from another land in our ancestors. But the reality is that we can't oversee the people who've been in the shelters for years and now feeling some type of way because we have the whole media and the buses and all this kind of stuff. Not being sensitive about it. We're not addressing, just like Nelson said, the real issue that's going on in the city. How is it that Texas, where you and I went, have been able to address the homelessness? How is it that they can, when New York City started the fair housing aspect? How is that possible?
With a Republican governor.
With a Republican governor. So if
the media portrays as an asshole.
If they were able to find a solution and decrease it by 50%, I could share these numbers. How is it that New York City every quarter is increasing more and more homelessness? How is that possible? What is it that we're not getting right? So this is more of a systematic issue and oppression. And I'm going to give shout out to the homeless hero who you need to bring him on the podcast. He addressed this in his documentary in December, where actually Eric Adams went for like 2 minutes, a whole crew, is that it's something that's real. What is it that we're doing wrong? Do we want to continue the oppression that's been going on in this country. And one aspect is controlling our homes, not having decent homes and dignified homes. Because the bulk of the people in New York City who are homeless are families and individuals. So, in terms of that, this is a big, deep rooted issue of systematic oppression and racism, because people have to go through, as you know best, 2010s, psychosocials, psych evals, award letters, income, and 100 million documentation to even try to get into some sort of tier one level, because there's so many tiers of housing that you have to go through. Why do we got to go through that?
Aside from the EHV Section 8 vouchers that they wave over your head, but they don't even pay out. So, it's just a bunch of stuff, right? It's about this stuff being done on purpose. That's just bottom line. We gotta say this stuff is being done on purpose because we want to push out the people of color, and we want to put the people who's going to pay the money, because we are the mecca of the world, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We're the biggest financial establishment of the world. And so what happens is you're doing it on purpose. You're saying, well, you could be homeless here, or you can move to Pennsylvania, or you can move to Florida, or you can move to one of those states that is very cheap, and you can work at McDonald's and still live. I mean, it's not fair to people at all, at no rate. And those are the things that I think that people are really, really not looking at. These things are being, look, I have the privilege of saying this, right? That I'm so lucky that I see this all the time. We get to house one person, 1 in 5 people in an HPD building because they provide Section 8. One building, 5 apartments, maybe, because they have a Section 8 voucher. What is that saying? You're building hundreds of developments all around the city, and you're only giving out 5 apartments? That's a problem. Because you're saying, oh no, you can't really afford to live here, but we want to just ration it out to people because, it's fair. It's not. Deal with the issues here of people who are homeless, and then worry about everybody else. Period. When the pandemic hit, nobody could make money. You see all the rich people saying, "I'm out of New York. I'm going over here because it's a lot cheaper to live."
Right.
They sold their condos in Manhattan, their houses, their brownstones, all these things. They said, "I'm out of here." Now the pandemic's over. The ones who stay said, "Nah, we're going to bring everybody back and just charge phenomenal amounts of rent," because they did a 4% increase in rent in New York. So if you're paying a certain amount, guess what? It went up 4%. You can't even afford to pay it.
Right, exactly.
Like you said before, now what happens is everybody's like, oh, yeah, the rent went up, so I just go to eviction court. The judge will probably say you got 6 more months. They'll save up some money, maybe not, or they'll be homeless. Because they only getting either HRA, which is, Human Resources Administration, welfare, food stamps, and all these. They can't afford it.
Right.
Even if they get another job. So now if you make a certain amount of money, you can't even get those things. You're not eligible.
Yeah.
So those are the things that people are not looking at. People don't see this stuff. Yes, the numbers, everybody's looking at the numbers, and I'm sure the mayor looks at the numbers, I'm sure his administration looks at the numbers, but they're not seeing the real live issue. They're not going in those places that I would go to, that Rosita would go to, that you would go to, and say, listen, how can we change the dynamic? They're not doing it.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I know we focusing on New York, but this is happening throughout the country. Like I said before, like I literally travel like most of Delaware just to go to work every day, and I'm seeing like single family homes. I'm seeing like townhomes being built, and like I drive around, and it's like It's beautiful, literally like new communities from scratch are being built. However, where are these like services? Like when I worked at the school system and a kid is homeless and I can't even contact the intake person to schedule an intake for the family to put them in because there's only one major freaking shelter in the whole county. So it's like we there needs to be more services, another shelter need to be like apartment buildings that actually like I joke around, but I'm like, no, Biden is from Delaware, hey, a couple bucks to the governor, like whatever, like the governor got had all this money or supposedly had, or like I'm the governor from your state that you from, like
Yeah.
do some favoritism, some nepotism or something, give us like a couple of extra bucks, like instead of giving Maryland a couple bucks, like give it to us or whatever, like finagle something like to, or Governor Carney wants to finally legalize marijuana and just tax it. There you got the extra income right there.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Can I,
that's a
but
whole other story. What
yeah.
kind of
So can
comments?
I, yeah, so that's like, no, you're right. And this is a reason, I don't mean to interject, but I do want to bring this up because this is a national crisis. This is more than just New York,
Yeah.
New Jersey, Delaware, the tri-state area, Connecticut. This is Pennsylvania. This is a national crisis. When I went to Dallas, I stayed in downtown Dallas and I was surprised. It wasn't what I was expecting. It was chronically homeless individuals or groups camping on a main road, not so far where President Kennedy got assassinated, and literally camping out and literally in need of services. You know, I saw some mental health, some substance use, and that was really not my role. But I was trying to understand that level of homelessness is completely different than in New York City. It really is. And I didn't know to what extent it was, but yeah, there, you know, someone said, "Oh, you're staying in downtown Dallas." I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, that's changed." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Now I see it. This is a national crisis that we're not addressing it. And because us as a capitalist country in America, we only focus on capitalism and money and everything else. We forget about the humanity aspects, is that we dehumanize people who are homeless. You go to Europe and that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Go to Canada, just cross the border, and that's a whole different aspect of addressing these social issues. So we dehumanize another human being because they're lost their home. You don't know what that person went through. We don't know their story. So this is more of a society of how we dehumanize each other and how the system continues to oppress us. Just like Nelson said, you got to go through hoops and these subsidies, yeah, they wave at you. I'm working with someone that I met has a subsidy 2,347 for the past 6 months. She hasn't been able to find an apartment in Brooklyn because brokers and landlords don't want to take that subsidy. So what's the purpose of giving people subsidies if they're not going to take it?
Which is dumb on their part because that's free money that they could take. Like they're gonna get their money regardless, so they might as well take it.
Yeah, but you know what I hear? They don't want to house those people. That's what I hear. And I've worked with a close broker and said to me, you know, Rosie or Rosita, that's great of you. You're doing this at your own time, but the landlords don't want to house those people or to programs. Isn't that true, Nelson, or not?
Yeah, and I'll say it like one of the things that I always look at, because right now I'm working on another initiative with the mayor's office to change people's minds about those things, right? About people who you saying you don't want in your buildings or your apartments or your house.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's happening is that they don't know the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
They just they have this picture of people that these people are not going to be good renters. They're not going to be good people to, because they're going to destroy my house. But what about that college kid who has the family with funds, right? And they come and they have parties, destroy your whole apartment. Is there a difference there? Because I don't think so, right? The other part is this: people who don't have want to keep what they have. So they're going to work harder They're going to pay their rent on time. They're going to make sure that people are obeying the rules and take care of the people who live in the facility, in the building, and make sure that nothing happens because they're territorial and they don't want to mess up their situation. They want to make sure they're there for the long haul, right? But the other part is this. Those vouchers that people talk about, they don't want to take, not only do they not want the people, they don't pay out on time. They're having a problem with them. So the city needs to address that too. Or the government in itself. Listen, I've been to Vegas 1,000 times. My father lives there. My mother lived there when she was alive. You know, and I go in the good neighborhoods. So you know, the good neighborhoods where there's gated communities and everything. And outside of those gated communities, a lot of homeless people. A lot of homeless people. They're not just and it's not one of those things that you can say, oh, Vegas is this rich town, they have all these casinos, all that. No, it's homelessness everywhere.
Mhm.
I have my son in Korea who's in the army. He tells me that there's a bunch of homelessness here. And it's in Korea. It's not as much as you know, these situations that we have, but they have it everywhere, not just in this country, all over the world. And those are the things that we should look at on how to help. The places that do know how to make it happen, we should be meeting with those people. We should be having those conversations. How did you do it? I want to know. What was the budget that you used to help these people like Houston? Housing 50,000 people. How did they do it? I want to know that. I do. I want to know how they did that.
Especially when they had a lot of people from New Orleans and all those cities. Every time all the hurricanes that keep coming down there, and they go to Houston, and so it's like we talked about earlier, having like all the buses coming from Texas to New York and stuff, and so it's just a lot going on. Washington D.C. blocks away from the White House got a whole block full of tents with homeless people. So it's like it's everywhere, and people call Washington D.C. the figure like Oakland or San Francisco of the East Coast, because the rents and real estate is through the roof. It's crazy, and all these skyscrapers are building all over the place. So it's a nationwide issue. It comes from the top. I mean, we had 45 hire a heart surgeon to run to run HUD. and that went nowhere for 4 years, and now we got Secretary Pete trying to. He's real quiet. I know he's gonna be in New York in a couple of weeks, talking with Al Sharpton. But he's been quiet regarding the situation. So if the money's not coming from the feds, then how the states and major cities like New York going to function if they can't get the money? And all this COVID money was like, hey, get all this money here, all this money. What happened to all that money? We still struggling.
It was FEMA money. It was out there. So one of the things that I looked at too when I was working at Exodus, I wanted to know, like, this money, you're spending this amount of money per year on these things. How did we get it? Finding out it was government money. It was federally emergency money that came from FEMA that paid the 2 years. It paid the 2 years. Now the money ran out. How you gonna keep these things going? And they said it. How you gonna do it? So this is why I do commend Eric Adams, because he said, you know what? We're gonna keep them open as much as we can. We're gonna work the budget so we can get there. Not only did he do that, and I will never say nobody has fault, somebody has right, somebody has wrong. What I will say is there has to be a better plan. You have to put yourself in a place where you're putting a better plan in place for homelessness, for housing, how these budgets are going to work. So that way we can help people with substance, mental health, and even people who are justice impacted. Because that's the people we work with, right? Those are the people that I work with and I'm very passionate about. So one of the things that I always say, don't judge me by what I've done. Judge me by what I'm doing. And so, the moment that people start realizing those things, and they start forgetting about the past stuff. Let's talk about what's happening right now, including the mayor. Those are the things that I am very, very passionate and very adamant. I will never fall for anything else. And those are my concerns.
No, there's nothing but facts that that you speaking on that, and it's just a lot is happening, and I feel like nobody's really talking about these issues. Like all right, like I know I've been talking about no, we like three years post no shutdown, and it's like people were struggling before, and then COVID came, and it's like we all got collective PTSD from COVID, and a lot of people was like grieving and losing loved ones. We we just now like at least maybe like the last year, like going to concerts and sporting events, like comfortably, like actually going like, all right, like no mask, I'm just gonna go and enjoy myself, try to live life like before COVID, and it's like, but people were like are still out there, still struggling, or probably even like worse now than they were three years ago, and it is like it's like how like when the presidential election like comes out every 4 years and they ask the question, or are you better off now than you were 4 years ago, and now vote for me, like that question really need to be out there. Are people really now, how are people doing? And I don't want to just only like bash like the two mayors or the borough presidents, especially borough presidents who I like doing deals with developers and building skyscrapers in the freaking hood, like right across the street from projects, and it's like just walking the street, and I was like, why would you build a freaking like luxury apartment that going from like $200,000-$300,000 and like right across the street from the project? So like, who's gonna buy that? Number one, it's like, why would you even like build it instead of building like actual affordable housing for the actual people in the neighborhood? So it's like it just doesn't make sense.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you go.
So I didn't mean to interject, but I'm going to add to that. Because I took a low income tax credit compliance course, because in housing, if you do compliancy, which I did, it's all these extra requirements. Number one is that there is something called an 80-20 plan. 80-20 plan is like, if you're a developer and you actually set aside certain amount of units, depending how many units is in a building, you get tax-free credits. You don't pay taxes. And they make it so difficult because it's a whole application. There's a formula calculation, which I dreaded it. And in terms of that, you got to see how many units are going to be allocated for that, how much that unit, that studio, that 1-bedroom, that 2-bedroom, and even that 3-bedroom is going to cost in terms of the rent and everything else. So that even right there is so sabotaging, because it's strategically done for the benefit of the developer. I'm going to give an example of this. Piano City, South Bronx, that whole area, the South Bronx, further right across the bridge in Harlem, I think it's 145th, has been under development since 2015. Look it up and you can see what I'm talking about. Sky luxury buildings, they weren't created for you and I, or people of color, or people who need more affordable housing. The rent starts at $3,000. Who's going to pay $3,000 for a 550 square foot studio? This is what they have done. None of those units are affordable or set aside, and if they are, it gives you all the extremes of extremes to get in. Am I right or wrong, Nelson, in terms of that?
Yes. And and the reason for that is, they created this great thing, right? It's called New York City Housing Connect.
Yeah.
You better off winning the actual lotto than winning that housing lottery. What a joke.
You go in there, you apply for an apartment based on how much you make, and it takes years to get called. Years. I know one person waited 7 years before they got a call for an apartment. It was a nice apartment, brand new, beautiful building, all that. But it took them 7 years to get an apartment. Now, let me tell you the other part to that. There are set aside apartments for those people. Yeah, right? Low income, yes, they do have them, but they're bringing them in for interviews tenfold. And then they're picking who's the right person for this apartment. So guess what? That's the beauty of New York City Housing Connect.
And on top of that, they building those houses in the middle of the hoods that were like filled with like drug infested, like drug kingpins and all this other stuff, like in the especially in Brooklyn. I know they try to gentrify all of Brooklyn. And like Putnam Ave and all those apps that I've like done scatter site housing for HIV and like literally like getting calls are like, oh, like drug lords took over my apartment, like please call the police. And now they building these luxury of apartments right smack in the hood.
And again, like I said, in those situations, people don't understand that you putting people, you're taking away from the environment. So, you know, another beautiful thing I always say, if there's a Starbucks in the hood, oh no, you made it. You made it. You put a Starbucks in the hood, you're good. That means that the price value of your place is going up if you own. And if you're renting and you don't have this grandfathered rent stabilized apartment, guess what? Your rent is going up. So you've made it. That's the thing. You're blocking people out. You're saying no. Either you're gonna go get 3 jobs and live here, or you're not gonna live here. Because this is gonna be too much for you, and we need people who can pay the rent. And so the people who can pay the rent, they work, they make 6 figures, they can move in here, not you. And we want them to have all the luxury. There's restaurants for 10 blocks straight, you know, Starbucks is there, you know, the little bit of, you know, home goods and all these other stores, the organic stores, all that stuff is coming in. That's the thing that people are not paying attention. They think, oh, Starbucks is here. My neighborhood is good. Yeah, your neighborhood is gonna be not your neighborhood's not so long.
Between the Starbucks and the bike lane.
And I want to add to that. Now, like what Nelson's saying is true facts, because once you, like my first experience when gentrification started at Harlem is when I started working there between 2004 and 2005. When I saw that Starbucks on Lenox Hill, that years later I went back to work in Harlem, I said, this is the beginning to the end. And guess what? It was the beginning to the end. Because not only did they do one Starbucks, which is the original on Lenox, they did another one. They have 2 Starbucks. And then what did they do? All these developers came into Harlem full force and took over, not buildings. They were buying out people for nothing, giving like literally pennies for brownstones, for property and everything else. What is Harlem looking today? You got a Whole Foods that was constructed in 2000 and 16 into 17 when I was working up there again, and they had security in the front and security in the back. I'm like, wait a minute, the one on 14th Street Union Square and the one in Tribeca does not have security. Why do we have security at Whole Foods? Racially profiling people who can and cannot afford it. I'm like, this is crazy. So let's look at what Nelson's saying is true facts. Because once I saw the Starbucks, I said, this is the beginning to the end. And that actually did happen. Whole Foods there, you have Shake Shack, you have all these other major chains of commercial just businesses, do they employ people from the neighborhood, which was part of their deal? Look into this. Part of their deal was to employ people in the community. They don't.
And they
So
run
they
background checks. And they run background checks because they got to make sure you have insurance. They make sure you want to, you can get health insurance, all these things, right? So they definitely do background checks. And the moment that you have a slight curve in your record, it's over. They're not doing it. And they're not supposed to technically racially profile that, but they could say, well, you got to do the background check. Well, we didn't think you was qualified for this job. For what? To pack bags? To stock shelves? That's what you don't think I'm qualified for? I mean, it's not rocket scientists. What's happening here?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Those are the things. I listen, I am a person who has faith in people. It took me a long time to get that way because I didn't before, and I'm always saying it. And I'm hoping that everybody is looking at everything, or at least a small portion of what we're talking about. A small. Because if they open their eyes a little bit, people will be like, wait a minute, this might be something. This might be something. We talk about UFOs. I see UFOs, and I see this, and I believe in this conspiracy and that conspiracy. This is not a conspiracy.
No, it's not.
Real life stuff.
No, it's so true. Like you just open your eyes and just walk. Like when you walk and like just look around and you just see it. Like even like I love MSG. MSG is probably like my favorite just venue or just place to go in all of New York. Especially once they renovated it. You go a few blocks down and you just projects. You right. It's just nobody talk about the projects that are right a few blocks away from good old MSG and all that fining and whining and dining with celebrities coming in like left and right and stuff. So people don't talk about these things, and it's like look, even like Yankee Stadium when they built the brand new one, they were supposed to like hire people from the neighborhood. And I guess originally they did a couple, like I seen like people went to high school with work there still, but it's like less and less like people now. So it's like it's you literally changed like the whole landscape of the neighborhood, just building a brand new stadium. I mean, they needed it to stay. The stadium was like falling apart, but at the same time, it's like all that property value like going up, and now to a point they changed the name of the neighborhood, like Concourse Village East or whatever it's called now. So just like right after building the stadium, and you mentioned Harlem, they're trying to change like the name of Harlem to like NoHo, like some with an N.
Upper NoHo, like some
NoHo,
like weird name.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is.
Look, keep Harlem to what it really is. It's part of Black culture. It's the pioneering Black culture and a lot of rich history. Why are we changing rich history? What is it so intimidating?
Changing American
Black
history.
They're changing American history. Harlem is like iconic for so many things that started. And so they're changing. They want to change in the agenda that we put it roots in our communities. Why are we doing this? And so like people don't give answers. We need to really look into the deep rooted seed of this country. And so that's a deeper issue that I'm not going to go into. How about talking of a lighter news about the Relish Initiative? How about that, Baz? Why don't we talk a little bit about positive things of housing?
What is that?
What is that? This is how I met Nelson back in October 2022. So the Relish, which is sponsored by the network, formerly known as Shinny, we're all going through rebranding, is a racial equity and supportive housing initiative and really a mentorship program. And this actually impacts everything that we do, because honestly, we are only 2% in terms of getting into a C-suite or an executive position. There's not enough people of Black and brown communities representing us to do all these housing projects. There's only 2%, and women even few. So this initiative, and this is how I met Nelson, was through the Shinny. And Mark Jennings, who is a peer of mine and also a friend, initiated this in 2020, where during the pandemic, where we were finding that there was a lack of Black and brown individuals in executive and C-suite positions in housing. When the bulk of people who are homeless, 70% are Black and brown communities, but we don't represent those seats to make the change at a policy and systematic level. So this particular initiative focused on creating and supporting the new generation of leaders in housing. And so it's a 24-week program. I mean, Nelson could actually say about his experience as a mentee, and they go through curriculum at Hunter. Shout out to my alma mater school, in terms of more of fundraising, also board membership, leadership, and all these other things that you get in theory. But in addition to that, you get to be matched to a mentor or someone that's been really, like myself, working for a while in housing, and be able to coach our future generation to get into those seats, because we're not afforded those seats. We could have 1,000 credentials after your last name, all this experience, and we're still struggling to have an opportunity. So this program focuses on preparing, supporting, and getting into those seats to make a bigger change. And Nelson could talk about his experience. It's a new initiative. We want to expand it more. And I want to say something positive about this. We need more people that look like us. Why are we housing more than 70% of the population in this country, probably more, and our executives and these CEOs and government don't look like us? Why are they making decisions for us when we should be making our own decisions as a collective group in terms of what services we need, what level of housing, and bring us to the table? So this is really what this initiative is about, bringing more of us in those seats that are limited, systematically limited, for us to get into.
And the best part about it, and I'll say it, because again, I was not only a part of the first initiative, first start of the 24 weeks. I was able to meet Rosita, who was a great mentor to me, taught me, many, and still teaching me many things, right? As far as being a leader. I think that the qualities that I've had in the past was always leadership, right? But I didn't get the opportunities, or I didn't get to learn the certain opportunities that I would have to intake for me to show my leadership. This program actually is able to teach you different ways and different dynamics and styles to leadership. And the same thing is to always be educated on the things that you should and you should not know as a leader, right? You should always, contracts and how to do, managing skills. Of course, some of us have those skills, just it cultured us. It showed us how to do it in different ways. And the program was actually, I have a slew of colleagues and friends now because of this program. Because now they all reach out to each other. We all talk. I have somebody trying to steal my mentor, and I'm not bashing, but I'm not really cool with that. But no, I'm saying I don't want to be greedy, but I'm just saying, like, this is the program itself. It makes people want to move forward and progress. I've been able to do this in a way that a lot of people haven't been lucky. But to join this program, I say even better than that. I was the only Latino in the program. The only Latino. All of my peers and friends, they were African American, West Indian. I was the only Latino. How privileged was I to be that person to change the dynamic? Because I led my peers in in those programs.
Mhm.
They wanted to be around me. They wanted to talk to me. They wanted to still have conversations with me. Then, still now. And so this is the network that we're building so that later on, people can say, oh, yeah, they deserve to be here. Why aren't there more of that? Because that's where they put us, them,
Right.
right? Or those people.
Right.
You could then me and those people all you want. I'm okay because I'm a different breed, and I know that. But I tell you what, I stand and fight with the best. So that's the difference, and that's what this program is about. And so that's why I say, when you have people like Rosita, like yourself, who are pioneering programs or talking about how we should definitely be bringing people to the forefront, our people, Black and brown, Hispanic, whatever it may be, you are doing an awesome job. Awesome. And I will always be a part of whatever that it has, as long as it's something that we can push people forward.
Is that program only in New York City currently, or are you trying to expand the program?
So, like, and I wanted to add what Nelson was saying, because he was the only Latino Puerto Rican in our group, and I was the only Latina mentor in that group that they paired us based on our experiences and things like that. So, yeah, like, we're being the forefront to being a game changer at a national level. Right now, it's in New York City. We're working on, and I can't go more into details of it, until like cohort number 2. And yeah, they want to do this more at a national level. I really consider and believe we need more of these mentorship programs, not only in housing, in our in social and human service profession and social work profession, in terms of leadership and supporting each other and having these collective groups. Because I know, like I mentioned to Nelson, when I was in starting in the profession of social work, it was really hard, and especially in housing. Housing is ruthless. It really is. It's a male white dominant area. And for us to thrive, the success is very small. And when you're able to thrive, like Nelson, like myself, and even and all the work that you do, direct service, it's very hard. It's very hard. So yeah, we want to expand it at a national level, because this is something that all our communities would definitely actually benefit from.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I'm just thinking that the times that I worked at scattered site housing, and it's like, luckily there was people of color, especially CEOs of nonprofit organizations that ran scattered site housing programs. One of them happened to be an author of the Volume 1 book, so is Volume 1. So it's like, but still, like, you're right, it's mainly male dominant, which is kind of weird. Like you got like the rec service staff, kind of like mainly women and white and white women.
Women.
So it's like a weird dynamic in working, doing direct service regarding housing. Just direct service in general is tough work. And like, even I saw a commercial today. It was like my closest major city is Philly, and there's like, it seemed like 1,000 people trying to run for mayor for Philly, and like one of the candidates wants to put mental health counselors in the street. I'm like, okay, I hope you pay them well, because we're really going to be out in the street trying to deal with all the craziness and all the violence that's been happening in Philly. So it's like, and part of it is a housing issue. Even though I've seen like Philly too, there's like, I don't know how accurate it is, but I've seen people post like, yeah, I'm like Northeast Philly, like I'm renting houses to people, and like people are renting in Northeast Philly or West Philly, and it's like, yeah, and I'm making a killing in rent, because people need places to, no matter if it's like dead in the hood with full of gun violence and everything. So it's like, it's weird, like all this violence is happening, but at the same time gentrification is still it's been rampant like crazy. And it's like, we're still now dealing with like the aftermath of COVID and whatever that that leads to as the rest of the year and like next year, and now we back talking about another presidential election again, and is like see what happens with that. So it's like housing will be constantly like evolving. It's always going to be talked about. People are always going to need a place to stay. Like that's why like I even like been like encouraging fellow social workers, like if you could somehow get into housing, whether it be like do like your own, like use your transferable skills and talk getting into like property management. You might have to get like a broker's license or whatever or something, but it's probably better than taking the damn ASWB exam. And you'll be making more money after a house sale than your whole salary in social work. So it's like or being like an investor in real estate, because like cities that are have been neglected for years, or like are on the come up, and is like slowly like Newark has been changing for the last 10, 15. Like now we joked like, oh, Newark's on the come up, Newark's on the come up. Like we like slowly see it. I was just in Newark like like a month and a half ago, and I was like, that McDonald's on the corner was not there last time I was here. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like,
So can I just add to that, Bash? Because I'm from Jersey, so I want to say that this whole come up is real. I know we're shifting again from topics, but the reality is, like, I was born and raised in Jersey. I mentioned this to Nelson too. Gentrification in northern Jersey is real. And I'm going to say this in terms of a developer more than the diverse population, because we're still struggling out here with diversity. It hasn't changed the mentality of racial profiling in New Jersey. However, Brick City has gone through major gentrification. Yeah, you're right, 10 to 15 years. They're pushing people out of their neighborhoods. They're destroying public housing, and they don't want it in their backyard. And when they see a person of color, like in certain neighborhoods that you live in, including myself, that they call the cops on me several times, thinking I'm from Brick City and not their neighbor next door. Yeah, the struggle is real. And so people from Brick City, where are they going? Where are they going? They can't afford the rent, and they're pushing people out here in New Jersey too. And here they're very vocal about it. They don't care. They call the cops on you if you look Hispanic. Well, if you're Hispanic or Black, because it's happened to me. And I was born here. I grew up in these towns, and it's a damn shame that in 2004, when I bought my house in an Upper East neighborhood, I got the cops called on me because I didn't look like I fit in. So yeah, it's still real. Why don't we talk about those things of how they block homeowners of color not to be part of these neighborhoods? And when you do so-called make it, you got to have a 6-figure plus salary, just like what Nelson said. So yeah, it is real.
And coming from another town, like I'm from Brooklyn, right? I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I look at all. Well, I don't pay attention to news a lot, but when I do see news, I'm always seeing people getting shot or stabbed or whatever the case is, a police officer, whatever the case is. And I'm looking at these scenarios, and I'm like, I go through Flatbush, which is one of like the areas that things happen all the time, or Crown Heights, right? And I see all these people, Caucasian people, white people, and they go and they're like going to their apartments or walking around, and they got Cafe Bonbon on the corner, and they're like nothing. Everything's fine. But these are the same neighborhoods that they're talking about as a high crime rate, right? But who's getting hurt? Who's getting shot? Who's getting stabbed? It ain't the white people.
right.
I'll say it. It's not. It's the people of color. So for me, everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody. Everybody knows, listen, if I do this to this person, I might be in some trouble, right? But if I do
Yep.
this person, it might not be so bad. So those are the things that I say, what the hell? If we was to pick each other up and say, yo, bro, don't do that.
Right.
Well, you know what they would do? Wait a minute. And teach them. Because you got to teach people. I'm an influencer. I spend a lot of time being a bad guy. I said, I'm never going to do that again. I said, I'm going to be a good guy, and I'm going to influence people because I know how to do it. And if we was to get to those places where us, our own, can influence our own to
Mhm.
not do certain things, it wouldn't be happening. Other part. It takes a tribe to raise a child. A tribe. When we was back in the day, ACS put a hurting on us, and I'm gonna tell you why. We used to beat the hell out of our kids, and it helped. You know why? They knew not to cross barriers. We hit them, we're gonna take them. You ain't gonna have them. I tell my children, I got 4, and they're all grown. You call ACS on me, yes, you're going with them. You're gonna go, but I'm gonna whip that booty. Whip that butt. You know why? Because you earned it. And in my day, that's how it went down. And it was from one block to the next that everybody I tell you what, you wouldn't do it again. And if you did something else. So you get all of that again. So those are the things that people are not really understanding. Like, we have to get to a place. I say it to my grandchildren. Well, I have 2. I say, and they're little, but I do tell them because they don't hit me. Oh yeah, I am. And when you get big, you're gonna go to school and they're gonna tell you call the cops if they hit you. Guess what? I'm gonna call the cops for you. Because when they come, I'm gonna say I beat her. Yeah, I beat them. You know why I beat them? For this. And they're gonna be like, oh, if you're a good parent. If you're a good parent. Because most people will be like, oh, you can't do that, but we understand. Some people will say, no, you can't. Bro, do you have these problems at home? Because if you have these problems at home, then you're gonna be doing the same thing I'm doing. And 9 times out of 10, if they're not doing it, their kid is beating them up. Their kid beating them. So those are the things. Let's teach people that you have to make sure in our neighborhoods, in our cultures, in everything that we do as leaders, you have to influence people to do better.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's definitely true. For it's funny as you were saying that. Yeah, I'm gonna beat you. I've been seeing a lot on Twitter. This whole generation is just so soft, and it's like you can. This emotionally, messing up these kids. Like, you smack them and you hit them, and it's like a lot of these kids need. Yeah, or just one time. You have if they don't change after one time, then like, but usually just take one time.
I'm just laughing because it's so true. It's like
teachers who are beating up these kids at school, right? How many times did that kid do something to that teacher? That eventually the teacher said enough is enough, right? Like, come on. You have to look at both sides. You put things on the news, you put it on social media. This person did this person did that. But look at how many times things happen to this person for them to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere. It just didn't happen.
Right.
It started somewhere. I have great people who mentored me in my life, who's taught me different things. And they always said, now, when you did what you did, that just didn't happen. That started from somewhere. Where do you think it started? And that's the things that we need to talk about. Not keep judging people or saying, yeah, you shouldn't have did that because it was the wrong thing to do. No, you got to ask the question. Where did it start from?
Exactly. We gotta go back to, like, humanize, especially now. Like, we just had a whole pandemic, and we still gonna be like judging people, like going through stuff. Like, you don't know what they've been through. We got as we've been saying the whole episode, people got like 2-3 jobs just to pay rent. Like, one job is like stressful enough. Like, and then you gotta come home. Now you got 2-3 jobs, and you probably still gotta find a food bank or something for food, because food's ridiculous, and making ends meet, and is just a lot that's happening all in one time. And I know, like, we've been talking about like like all the financial stuff, like all the but, which kind of leads to like the real estate too. Like people need to be like focusing on like paying attention to what's happening like with our finances in terms of the government, because even though real estate is not going anywhere, but it trickles down somehow some way to us in the social work field, and we got to be dealing with it. And then when somebody come to us, be like, I just had somebody like this week. It was like, oh well, my family member like had a stroke, and they were the ones working, and like both our incomes was paying our mortgage. Now like, but the person's on, we don't know if that person is going to live, and now like now I might be facing eventual homelessness because like I can't afford it just on my social security alone. So it's like, there you go, like, and not mentally ill, not anything. You just, life happened, like medical stuff happened, and now you're possibly facing, eviction or foreclosure on your home, or if you don't sell it. So it's like, it's stuff like that's happening. It's just a lot, and it's like, it really just to unpack everything. We be here like
for hours. And can I just add to that? Because we'll be here for hours on this whole like housing and homelessness. And it's really more, and I always see this, it's about people having homes and building community and really having their roots there. And it's a human right. Like the three things I always say, and I break it down, and it took me a long time to really break it down to these areas, is food, clothing, and housing. Those three. Cell phones, social, everything's out the door. We need to survive with the very human basic needs, which are all those three. And if we don't have those three, then we're in survivor mode, and it causes a lot of distress, right? Everything else is a luxury. We think like the phone and social media is our life. No, if we don't have food, clothing, and shelter, then we're on survivor mode. And you're right, this is a bigger issue. And I'm glad that, like you and I could always connect and talk about these real issues, because it's real. We all are struggling one way or the other, whether it's financially, whether it's some personal stuff, whatever it is that we're coming across with in life. And it's not only about mental illness. Homeless can happen to any of us. And mental health, whether you have a diagnosis or not, guess what? It's real. We all go through stuff in life, and especially where this country is going through a lot of financial difficulties, a lot of things. We need to support each other and be a collective voice and be able to be kind to each other and be humane and not destroy each other. Because that's what we do many times. We judge people, those people, they people. Like, no, like that could happen to anybody. And that's where the education and having leaders like Nelson and myself in housing and trying to really be social change agents and changing that mentality where we can represent more of us for our communities.
And I like how the politicians be like, housing is a basic right, but again, they're not doing anything to lower the cost of housing for a basic person to live. So, and it goes back to like the systemic racism and everything else that's happening, and they got money to send to all the other countries and sending weapons and stuff, but you can't house, you can't build no shelters for people here at home. So it's crazy.
So sometimes I think, and this is just my thought, and I'm my thought is this. Sometimes they don't look at us as humans. It's a human right, right? It's a human right for you to be housed, for you to have food, for you to have clothes. It's a human right, right? It's a human right. I don't think they look at us sometimes as humans. They're saying, again, that's dumb. This is us. They're saying we're humans, but we don't know what they are. And they make whatever idea that they have about us. It's the moniker that they put on people. So when you say human right, it's a human right for those people, whoever they consider human.
Right.
That's the whole thing to that. Again, I think a lot of us have been fortunate in a lot of different ways, but for the most part, I could sit in a circle. Some people will be acceptance.
Mhm.
It's up to me to change that. I could go at any place, any time, and talk to people, and they'll be like, "Really? For real?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, you didn't know it?" And they'd be like, "Wow, you." And again, the level of education that some people have, even in this forum right now, is a lot more than mine. I
Mm.
say it all the time. Only thing I've been blessed with, and I, you know, have both sides. I have the street and I have some education. When my mom and my dad taught me morals and respect and just common sense to just different dynamics of things. And so I've been able to observe, watch, listen, and then make my own assessment of things. That's the difference. And so those are the things that I always say to people, like, you think because I'm person of color and you're other. No, we're all humans. We're all humans. We should be treated that way. I want to treat you that way, and you should treat me that way, no matter what the
Mhm.
situation is. And those are the things that people should be saying to other people. I don't care about all the other stuff. It doesn't matter. If me and you have the same viewpoints as far as how we treat people or what we should be doing to help people move forward. I don't care about color. That doesn't mean anything to me. But if you care about it, that's your problem. It's your problem. That's what I say to them. And that's why I say people do not always see us as humans. They
Mm.
might see us as something.
No, absolutely. Where can people find you? Find you guys?
So you can find me, Rosita Marinez, at LinkedIn. You can also find me in Instagram. You can go to Latinx social work also. Yeah, and at Fountain House. And Nelson can say where you can find Nelson too.
Oh, you can find me at LinkedIn also. I think Instagram, you can find me as Nelson.Rivera18.
Mhm.
And then Facebook is the same moniker, Nelson.Rivera18. And I'm part of the Fortune Society. So Rivera at fortunesociety.org. You can always, email me or shout out, whatever. If I could be of any assistance,
Mhm.
please reach out. Always willing to help as much as I can with whatever powers that I
Awesome, great conversation. Both of you keep up the great work, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Baz. Thank you, Nelson. Thank you. Always great
can.
convo, Baz.